We'll now hear plenary session number 8 with an exciting topic. It's cross-media expansion, video games to film and TV. Let's see the introductory video, please.
This region is uniquely positioned to capitalize on the growing trend of adapting video games into films and television. This shift presents exciting opportunities for developers to leverage their intellectual property for cross-media expansion. However, navigating rights negotiations and ensuring fair revenue sharing models is crucial. By emphasizing strong branding and compelling storytelling, startups can attract valuable partnerships with media companies and transform game concepts into multimedia successes. Are you ready to take the leap forward?
Bueno, me complace ahora invitar a los protagonistas del próximo panel.
I am glad to now introduce the participants of this panel. The moderator is Laura Gagliesi, manager of Animar Cluster. And the panelists are Mario Bache Reyes, co-founder and managing partner of Altered Ventures. Welcome. Kaifus Moore, creative director of Coded Arts and Game Art program lead of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome. Florencia Fole, president of Argentina's Video Game Developers Association, ADVA. Welcome, Florencia. And Renzo Sanchez, founder and general manager of Arti Games. Please, Laura, you have the floor. Welcome, everyone. My name is Maria Laura. I am glad to be part of this panel hosted by the IDB. I thank the IDB for the invitation. And when I think about adapting the industry, I also think about how we tell the stories. What's our DNA that shifts along time? So to start with, I'd like to invite you to watch a video. Let's see if they can show it to you.
It's time. This world has waited for your arrival. It is you. You will open the door. Because you are the chosen. All those moments. It's a new adventure. Just for you. You have a game to play.
Bueno,
So after watching this, I'd like to start with Mario. As I was telling you, the main topic of this panel is how to adapt TV series and film to video games. I remember that the history of humanity has begun with writing and ways of adapting narrations. So, Mario, would you like to tell us a bit about it? Yes, of course. Thank you, IDB, for the invitation. Thank you, Gerardo Esperanza, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. What we were showing you is a video, a clip of a a video game that would be launched in Amazon Prime, which is based on another series that maybe you know of. It's called Love, Death and Robots. And that is the case of what Laura was mentioning, the adaptation of an IP, which is a video game, and adapting it to a TV series. I'm curious to know what the other panelists think about this trend, this very interesting signal of a trend that exists in an industry that many of you surely know. It has a very large volume. It's $200 billion. If you include film, TV, and streaming, this doesn't add up globally to the number I was telling you about, 200 billion. What's interesting is that the regions that are growing year after year are emerging regions. Latin America is the second region that's growing at a faster pace after Africa and the Middle East. It's the region that's growing faster in terms of gamers in terms of independent studios. That is to say, something has been happening 5 years ago, for about 5 years, and throughout the pandemic, and this represents an opportunity. The cross-media expansion is an opportunity, not only adapting series to video games, but the other way around, video games to series. Probably you've all seen The Last of Us, or animated series based on League of Legends or Cybercom. All of these phenomena that are narrating stories from a very familiar perspective, a unilateral consumption of media, documentaries, TV series, etc. These are all opportunities for people who are maybe not developing video games but are working on creative industries, for them to pay attention to the video game industry and how to also take advantage of this trend. It's not normal. It's not only about paying attention to the video game industry as a possible example of how startups can create video games. It's not a trend for future game developers. It's an industry that will provide an opportunity to plenty of sectors or industries that work with animation, narration, software development business. That's what we are doing in Altered Ventures. It's an investment fund I have started after a lot of years of working in the electronic gaming industry. I am Mexican, but I am based in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and we are focusing specifically on emerging markets, and precisely in Argentina, where we are looking at how we can contribute to entrepreneurships regarding that work with this adoption. Thank you very much. Kaifus, how do you think that
¿Cómo te parece que la universidad
Kaifus, how do you think that the university can help in this process of expansion of video games?
Spanish is.
No.
You don't want to hear me speak Spanish. But like Mario was saying, this is an amazing industry and it's so lucrative. And we have to start letting the children know that in order to even participate, you have to learn.
Yes.
And myself, just like Mario said, I used to live in the Bay Area, close to him, work in the video game industry. Now, from my Trinidadian roots, I've returned to become a professor at the university to teach students how to do this. And they have so many things. The industry understands this fully. You have Unreal Engine, which is one of the biggest engines out there that people are using for TV, production, video games, marketing. They're giving it out to you for free. They have Blender, which is a 3D software program that people can use to make this content, and they are also giving it to you for free because they understand that there is not enough content to sustain the consuming that people want for this kind of industry. So we have to do that. And I tell my students all the time, you're going to be here for 4 years. You're going to be here 7 days a week. You're going to work all the time. And you might have to work part-time at the movie theaters to do your work. But that's okay. Because there's a video game out there called Stardew Valley. And it was made by one person. And it took him 4 years. And he worked 7 days a week. And he worked part-time at the movie theaters. But that game has grossed over $300 million.
Claro.
Right? So we have to understand at the educational level, you have to make that pipeline to the professional level in order to sustain something that's so beautiful that this industry has to offer.
¿Y cómo te parece que las particularidades de Latinoamérica, esta cultura?
And how do you think that the specificities of the culture of Latin America can be translated into the new formats of video games for consumption?
The culture. He mentioned a game called The Witcher, which is based off of Polish folklore that everybody might know now is on its third season for a Netflix TV show that has been taken into production. The Caribbean, Latin America, and everybody knows from your grandmother, your grandfather, your abuelas, your abuelos, that you know these folklore that we have is rich. It is rich within our blood, within our history, within our culture, and we need to cultivate on that. Tell our unique stories, our unique voices, and bring that to the gaming space, and then let that become palatable for the international marketplace. Absolutely.
Perfecto.
Yeah.
Y Flor, ¿vos qué pensás sobre la adaptación?
Flor, what do you think about adaptation in general? Well, first of all, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I think we're past midday. I'm Florencia Fole. I'd like to touch on some topics that have been discussed in the previous panel. In my case, I am representing the Association of Video Game Developers of Argentina, and we are identified sometimes with traditional industries. Even though Argentines are identified by beef or soy, the billing or the revenue of the video game industry in Argentina has surpassed soy industry. So it's very important for us to keep an eye on those data. The industry is quite relevant. It's quite young. On the other hand, it's over 20 years old. So we have very young entrepreneurs finding their first steps, and they are going to the global stage. We have Amazon, for instance, as an investor in cross-media projects, but these are not the only one. There are many companies getting involved and generating opportunities. And precisely, the talent in Latin America is very special. After the pandemics, there's been a high production of quality and talent, and we have validated that we are a people that is top level, has AAA quality or Hollywood quality, as said in the film industry. People say that the best is done in Latin America and in Argentina. Do you know Fortnite? Well, Fortnite, a video game, is developed by a studio that's located in Buenos Aires and hires talent all over the country. We work together with the Foreign Affairs Ministry, with provincial governments for promotion issues, with embassies as well, in order to raise awareness and offer new opportunities within the video game industry, and to be able to understand the consumption audience. One might think that video game consumers are teenagers. On the one hand, they have grown old, but nowadays, despite that, we see consumers of 80 years old. So there's a wide age gap covered, from youngsters playing Roblox to old age people finding a space to engage with their families, the society, get trained. They are immersed in a culture that everyone today knows. So we need to still find opportunities at national level. The quality of the products that we are able to develop is being validated. And before entering this panel, we were discussing together that we should not only focus on the narrations that we can take to the film or TV industries, from video games to the film and TV, but also that we should find video games as a medium to express our culture, folklore. There are so many stories that have been successful in Argentina and in Latin America at global scale, in literature as well. A problem that's widespread today is that new generations, are not reading books. So video games could be used as a channel for generations to revisit these stories that represent us as nation, by using video games as a narration, which is what they are in the end. Many times people say that video games do not lead to anything or generate anything. But this year, we had to announce the amount of hours that our team had played a certain game, and that was an added value when it came to winning an award. So maybe a lot of parents think that it's negative for a kid to be playing video games, but it's also nice for them to see them as tools and as an entry door to the world that's coming. Because if we are talking metaverse, video games are the closest thing we have to a social immersion experience, with hundreds of thousands of people being simultaneously doing something without being next to each other. So it's very interesting to analyze the public-private alignments that could arise from this. And many international companies are validating talent from Latin America.
Renzo, can you please tell us about the world of video games and movies? And producers are very important. Why don't you tell us a little about the importance of producers in these projects? And how can we, in a Latin American context, find a way around training new producers? Good afternoon. Thank you for your invitation. I'm very happy about it. And in order to relate this to what has been said before, the industry is big, multimillionaire industry, but it's important to take into account that it's a very difficult and complicated industry. Many companies go bankrupt, and lots of investment are needed to finance a game. It's a very complex task. Developing a video game is extremely complex. It requires many disciplines. It requires programming, which is extremely complex. We've seen many projects with lots of errors, and that's why they fail. If we take into account the Angry Bird game, which was very successful, we have to take into account that before they had Angry Bird, they had around 40 games that did not have any success, or they had medium success. It's very difficult to find companies that will resist time. There are a few, many, but it's kind of difficult to find them because it's quite a complex industry. And here comes the importance of producers and how in Latin America we work with these video game projects. It is so complex and so costly that in Latin America we are hobbyists. We do everything. We program, we do art, we do music. In each discipline, we do everything. Because if we are programmers, we are engine programmers, we're graph programmers, we're effect programmers, we are everything. And in much more advanced industries, such as the US, Canada, UK, Germany, they're focused in only one discipline. I am engine programmer, I am effect programmer, I am post-production effect programmer, and so on. The same goes for art. I am character designer, I am world designer, and in Latin America we are everything. We do everything. And in Latin America, it's quite hard to find the role of a producer. My company has been in the market for more than 18 years, and in the first 14 years, the role of producer was non-existent. Without being aware, we were playing the role of the producers. And last year, I was very fortunate because I had an agreement with PlayStation, and I could take a master's on producing, and it really opened my mind about how to work on these projects and the importance of the producer's role. And these projects are so complex to push forward. In Latin America, we're very good. There's a lot of talent, and we are very good at developing the product. There's a lot of talent. We're very good programmers, but then we have the part of selling the project, and that's quite complicated for us. And we realize that it's not selling as we expected, or we don't know how to sell, we don't know where to get investors, we don't know how to promote it. So the production role is very important. There are projects that have more than one producer, because producers help you to move along the project better. You can control timing much better. What normally happens is that we need more funds, and the project dies because money is a limited resource. If you don't have money, you can't conclude the project, and if you don't conclude it, you lose all the investment. So the producer's role is very important to control timing, budgets, marketing, media, investment, and in general, the development process of a complex process to be developed for a video game. Mario, can you tell us about an example regarding the adaptation of film adaptation to video games or vice versa? That's an originally Latin American IP, or maybe a project that you think is important to be mentioned here in the context of Latin America and the Caribbean? Thank you, Laura, because I have a commercial to show. Renzo mentioned something that's very interesting. It's a very tangible lead about where each one of you can play a role in the industry of services to help this huge industry. Think about anything that your company does, anything that you do as partners or as service vendor in any industry. When a producer or a video game project, whether it is cross-media or not, we are saying that the industry of video games in Latin America is growing in double digits, and it's been doing so for 7 years. And as an aside comment, at a world level, thanks to the pandemic, of course, it was terrible, but that enabled us to grow by 23%. How many industries do you know grow by 23% annually? So the sector has been growing 11, 13, 16. That's the annual percentage of growth that the industry is registering in Latin America. So not considering the industry of video games as a thriving industry, the reason why I've seen that in the session that we are 50% here in the room. In the services sector, if they see there is a video game session, they will say, okay, video games is for children. There's a barbecue in the room next door. How can you compete with that? But the point I want to make here is that please consider that anything you do or your partner's company does, consider it because this industry needs you in ways that even us financing video games can imagine. The capacity that a game developer or a small or medium-sized studio of video games in Latin America has, and I've been able to work in this industry for the last 25 years, the capacity they have to do something as simple as sales or raising capital is a problem. For a game developer, for a person who's 100% creative in their core, it's very difficult to wear a jacket and sell. It's very difficult to pitch your studio. It's very difficult to sell services. That is where there lies a big opportunity to partner with this industry, not only in Argentina, which has been setting the example for the last 20 years. It is leading by 10 years, at least with Mexico. Argentina has proven to be a huge player in video games, but the opportunity is for all the region. So, going to some examples. We've mentioned IPs, and there is one, content is key, but IP is a rule of law. Intellectual property is what really gives huge opportunities from the point of view of profitability. And the example that comes to my mind is The Last of Us. In the case of The Last of Us, there were people who knew about intellectual property, one of the most fascinating intellectual properties of all times. There are people that are only now discovering that that magnificent story of apocalyptic zombies is based on a video game, not only on one, but two. Season 2 of The Last of Us is based on the second part of the game. That's the reason why our investment fund, Altered Ventures, is now financing projects that have to do with audiovisual projects. We've been involved for more than 4 years in issues related to films, to shorts, to audiovisual productions. And I was telling you, and thank you, Laura, for mentioning, I was telling you that we are financing a series in Latin America which specifically talks about the periphery and the universe related to what is a gamer, what's a game developer, how do stories happen, and all this is fiction around the world of video games in Latin America. The huge weight that Hispanics have in the US when it comes to developing video games and servicing many companies. There are lots of opportunities lying out there, and I'd like to conclude by saying that you should think a lot about the opportunities around the industry beyond what's evident, beyond the software development, the creative development. The industry and the sector needs you. Thank you. Flor, can you please tell us about a success case regarding adaptation nationally speaking. Yes, I have an example that is considering technology in video games. Do you know Eternauta? Some of you know what it is about. The series Eternauta, which is going to have Darin as a main character, there's been some publicity about it. There have been some sneak peeks. Has been developed with the technology used to develop video games today. It's developed with Unreal Engine, one of the main video game developing engines in the world, and I'd like to add something else. The main three are Unity, Unreal Engine, and Godot. Godot is also an engine developed here in Argentina. The founders of Godot are Argentinians, and it's one of the three main engines used in the world to develop the video games that we see today in mobile games, PC, and consoles. And I think that is something important to take into account. It's not only IP, which is the most valuable thing, but we are also educating talent that can develop and implement this technology and add technological progress in the creation of audiovisual content for the world. Something else I wanted to add, all of us using Netflix know that Netflix has Netflix Games, the gaming platform, and for those of you who don't know, in the top 3 ranking, we have an Argentine game. One of them is Storyteller. It's been the most downloaded game. If you don't know it, please go and play it. That's another success story of more conventional platforms for movies and TV. They are adopting video games as a channel to reach the consumers. And truth be told, there are many opportunities, and something regarding access to financing. From our association, we foster the creation of investment funds or programs that will help these developers to market their products and to have these opportunities, because from our association, we represent more than 150 members, and less than 20% can pitch their project and can assess the different business opportunities that exist in the world today. It is extremely important for us to create different programs. Recently, the program Orillas has been launched. It's a program in cooperation and collaboration with France, which supports the development of audiovisual content and video games that will promote the culture of Latin America. So I think that these are opportunities to understand that we are a young industry. 20 years is nothing, and we need to be accompanied by other industries so as to find when opportunities and talent cross or meet. Mario, would you like to ask a question to Cephas about some adaptation or content that he would like to tell us about? Yes, of course. In English?
But Kaifos and I worked in the same building for years, and we didn't cross paths, never, right? So nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
We both worked for Electronic Arts. So one of the questions that we were talking about, like the big opportunity for Latin America, not only on the services side, but on the IP development. From our side, as a fund investment, we are always looking for projects, and on 2025, as I said to you, we are looking forward to allocate much more capital in the region, right? We've been working for 5, 6 years already in Europe, in Latin America, and the US Hispanic. But now I think it's the right timing for Latin America, particularly South America, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, and of course the Caribbean, to take a look into the IP opportunity. So the question would be, you also not only on the university side, on the teaching side, you have a company.
Yes.
And this company is now working in both universes, right? On the services side, but you guys are cultivating an IP.
Yes, we are.
So this is actually a symptom that my point exactly, which is the next big thing in Latin America is going to be own IPs. It's not only about providing services. What's your vision?
Yeah.
What's your perspective on this opportunity?
I firmly agree. With our private studio, Coded Arts, we do a lot of service for the video game industry in North America and Europe. That keeps our lights on, that gets all the students from the university to have a job and a career, which prevents them from leaving Trinidad and Tobago, having to move to freezing Canada. No disrespect to anybody from Canada. Right? And get to stay in the warmth of the Caribbean and keep our smartest and our most creative people home. So that's one of the reasons why we have the studio. But as we keep our lights on, behind the scenes in our kitchen, we're cooking up our own independent IP. And that's the thing where we can tell our own stories, our own folklores, to bring it to the forefront. And people always say, yeah, but you're gonna make your own game, it's gonna be like Fortnite. You don't have to do Fortnite. Fortnite is $100 million to produce something like that.
Right.
But if you know about a very unknown small game called Among Us, which took about 4 people to make, I think the investment was maybe 100,000 US.
Right. On Minecraft. The beginning of Minecraft was completely independent.
Exactly. And that game Among Us garnished maybe $86 million in revenue.
Right.
And that, last time I looked at that stat, was 2022. So it's been 2 more years. They might have earned more, I'm not sure. And that opens up merchandising, apparel, toys, and all these other things that you can think of.
Right.
And this is the first time that something like this has happened, that IPs become TV or multimedia. Everybody played Pac-Man in this room. I know you have, right? Pac-Man became a Saturday morning cartoon back in the 80s, right? So it's something that's been happening for decades, but now it's just happening on a much, much larger scale, as you mentioned, with Last of Us and Fallout as well. Yeah.
Bueno, y ya para hacer. Okay, to conclude, Renzo, as a producer, what would you consider attractive to say, in this adaptation, that is where I'm going to work. That is going to work.
Well, the scenery is the scene is very varied. In a marketing approach, for instance, I should make a market analysis before I develop or sell a product. But during our 18 years of history in our company, we never thought of doing a market analysis before developing a video game. We know about the trends, what games are selling, but there's a lack of order, and that's when production comes in order to carry out an orderly process. Trends constantly vary. You may know what games are selling the most, what is your competition, what will be the unique characteristics with which a certain video game will compete with other. And these are all important facts. So I would pick a game which I know fulfills several of the characteristics of my market analysis. If whether the game can get funding, whether it demands less risk because it's very trendy, whether the market is not that saturated and can absorb or welcome that game. There are a lot of options in that regard. Thank you very much. With this, we bring this panel to an end. Thank you very much to the audience. Thank you very much.